So our subject has been the Blair Warren quote from his book. People will do anything for those who encourage their dreams, justify their failures, allay their fears, confirm their suspicions, and help them throw rocks at their enemies. And we've been kind of backwards armchair quarterbacking this thing from the end, from throwing rocks to confirming their suspicions. We talked about allaying their fears, and last week we dived into justifying their failures. Now, the fun part today, right? Which saving the best for last, the easiest for last, or the probably the most misunderstood for last? What do you think it is? Maybe all of the above. People will do anything for those who encourage their dreams. And I want to kind of start that out by, we're all selling a product or a service, okay? And that provides a solution, correct? Something. David helps people that get on the wrong side of all of their tax documents, right, David? Is that what it comes down to? It's like, what is the problem? Okay. But even with that, David, the benefit of your service is not what you do. Okay. The benefit of your service is what it does for them, not really. It's actually a step beyond that. Okay. So as we want to encourage their dreams, if we don't really have this part dialed in, we can do everything by the book and everything correctly, and they still don't sign up. Anybody experience that? Yeah? Tell me about it, Carly.
Well, I mean, there's it's not just about showing them their dreams. It's also about speaking to the fears that they have, that when they have that success, what that's going to lead to in a nutshell. It what I've noticed with a lot of moms is they have this dream, they have this ambition. They want to have that beautiful natural birth. They want to be able to feel connected to their family. They desperately want it. And at the same time, there's
What's
that
up?
fear of something going wrong, or the fear of the pain, or the fear of the pushback. And then there's the other side of it. Like, well, what if I have that? And then, like, what does that say about my old story? Or maybe they're out of rapport with their family, or somebody's going
Mhm.
to tear them down. I mean, I get that too. People are like, you
Mhm.
did what? I'm like, yeah, it's badass. And like, but you should be ashamed of yourself. I'm like, but I'm not. But somebody else might be like, oh, I should be ashamed. Maybe I was just lucky. Maybe I'm going to lose it. Maybe if I try to go for it again, it's not going to happen.
Thoughts?
Come on, guys. I soapbox enough.
Well, it's a huge aspect of it is that if whenever you make a change, including positive change, there will be people around you who are going to want you to stay the way you are or turn back the way you were or just not make waves. It's a big part of any kind of change, especially if it's a really significant core change in a person's life. And I mean, there are so many assumptions that's made about birth and basically that, as that leads to lots of cesarean sections and all kinds of other stuff that is pretty clearly invasive and harmful. But
So,
part of it is, of course, that in that case, yeah, I mean, that's sort of the general thing, is that people are challenged by anything that's other than kind of the normal status quo. And for most people, the normal status quo in their lives is really not like a very satisfying um life in the end.
I heard a really good quote recently.
okay.
We often choose a familiar hell rather than an unfamiliar heaven.
Yep.
That
Yeah.
status quo, even if it's something that we don't like or it's like, okay, I've learned how to survive with it this way. I've learned how to like adapt and like even if this sucks, at least I've gotten through it a few times before. Versus the unknown is just the mind can imagine all kinds of monsters on the in the unknown when in reality it could be better than we can imagine.
Mhm. Yeah, that's a really good point, Kevin. So when we're it's what we don't see. So it's like when we're trying to encourage their dreams, this is a really sticky spot. Okay, because it's recognizing. I'll tell you, Kevin, how we get there faster. Okay, so let's kind of speed date this. Is before you pitch, you got to know them first. The longer you can take to pitch, the better chance you are to develop a real relationship to find out what it really is. As opposed to when I first started studying sales, like in detail, I was probably in my 20s. I remember reading Tom Hopkins and people like that. And I went to a big Dennis Waitley event and stuff and bought all the tapes. I still got it on my shelf. I don't even have a tape player anymore, but I spent so much money on those tapes. Doggone it. I ain't getting rid of them. That typically in sales, I mean, you'd perfect your pitch, right? Anybody like, I need to get my package. I gotta have my website done. I gotta know what to say, right? I gotta know how to transition to the sale. Any of us guilty of that? It ain't it. Because then you do it, and then so much of sales training is spent on overcoming objections. Now, how do you answer all the objections? And the problem, and then when I was, even when I was working with Chet, I mean, we was big on isolating the objection, and finding it. But Chet was a master at this process that we never had objections because by the time we got to that point of the conversation, it was a logical conclusion. Now, how did we do that? It's finding the circle that they're in and what their default is. It's finding the circle. Think about that for a moment. Find that when you're talking to somebody, you have to understand the circle that they're in and what their default is. Because that's what is going to be that is what I'm going to say, that is what is going to create the logical conclusion. If you get them outside of that comfort, okay, it's a harder play. If somebody is living in a typical suburban neighborhood, okay, and you're trying to get them to buy into the Rolls Royce with the jet, with the big mansion on 5 acres or more, and they don't have any friends that have those kind of things. All of their friends are also living in a suburban neighborhood or a typical city neighborhood. Do you see the problem?
We don't want to outgrow our community.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, also you really kind of, there's a limit on your imagination,
Mhm.
what's possible.
Yeah. Now you can get past there. So Elaine, you have to know which game are you playing, right? And so you can jump people out of that. And we're all guilty. So think of, first off, can you sell yourself on this, right? We all want to be successful, right? But do we really? That's a hard question, right? I want to make more money. Anybody want to make more money? But the problem is, and you think you do, but you see, it puts you out of your default. So when you're trying to encourage their dreams, you've got to get into who they are and what their relationships are around them. Okay. Terry, I've got a smoker, pellet smoker. Okay.
Yes.
But you know what? My circle of friends they eat meat. That makes sense. I mean, we have some friends that are vegans and vegetarians, but primarily the people that gather at my house, we throw some burgers on the smoker, and I'm significant, right?
Yeah. I eat meat too, by the way, Donald.
The yeah, but does that make sense? It's like, right? If this, so it's like if does that make sense? It's my circle, that's my circle.
Your circle,
And
yeah.
so, when you're talking with people, you got to be conscious of who are their circles and what is their default. Is that helping you guys out? You see, I'm thinking about it. It's like, right? Are we speaking? It's like people, when David and Bennett and I have gone back and forth, because he's always trying to get out of me, what are the exact phrases and words and stuff like that. And I was just telling him the other day, like him, David is the commensurate Southern gentleman, right? And his obvious target audience, that's where he should start, is people that resonate with a commensurate Southern gentleman, right? Take a look at that.
Mm-hmm. Birds of a feather flock together. I just heard that this morning too.
Yeah. A phrase I just got off a big webinar presentation that my team did, and one of the phrases that we threw out was success moves at the speed of relationships. Success moves at the speed of relationships.
One of the things that I learned, and I had a hard time teaching my younger investigators what to do, is to hand them the pen after they got the confession. The suspect has to sign it, and that's really the sale right there. You can get the information, write it all out, but if they won't sign it, you ain't got nothing. And if you didn't build the relationship enough to where they trusted you, either they wouldn't take the pen. So it took me a long time to explain that, you can give them all the consequences and benefits, features and benefits, right? But if you don't build that relationship when they're sitting in front of you, they're not going to sign it. And the same thing with the sale.
Yeah. And so often we're selling the wrong thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and in doing a confession too, Tony, I always like to try to give myself, this is your time to tell your side of the story. So my confessions don't just say that I did this or that. I try to, and because when you tell your side of the story, more often than not, you're confessing that you did the crime. You're admitting to it in that, but it doesn't say I committed a crime or I did this and ain't this thing. Well,
that's it.
Money disappeared because I had to feed my grandparents, or
it's their side of the story, right? Perfect.
Right. And that's how I sell a confession. Is that the benefits and features. I'm giving you a chance to tell your side of the story now before it gets away from you, because when we get these other people involved, they're not near as friendly as I am.
Yeah.
Donald, it strikes me that of the words that Blair Warren could have chosen here, like support, answer, hear, feel, see, acknowledge, about our dreams, he chose the word encourage. So I'm channeling back to a movie that some of you may have seen called The Wizard of Oz, and the character in the movie, the lion, Bert Lahr, didn't have courage. So what did Bert Lahr get? He got a heart. The word cur is from the Latin word for heart. So if we're encouraging, we're putting in or getting into somebody's heart or inviting them there. In other words, it's way deeper and way more profound than all those other words that we tend to use. And nowadays everybody's saying, "Oh, I hear you, I feel you, I see you." Well, I don't mean to make fun of those. Encourage is really, really powerful. And I don't think it's accidental that he chose that. And if someone feels that we've heard what's in their heart, it's not a question of whether they're going to buy our stuff. They're going to really feel that we have heard and felt and seen, and so all those other words are now unnecessary.
Yeah. So let's get a little bit tactical on this. And how do we do this, right? Okay, this is all nice, right? And how do we actually do this? I was talking with a gal yesterday, right? And there again, I'm the marketing expert, correct? And so she wants all this wonderful marketing knowledge, right? What do I do on my website and how do I create the sales funnel, all this stuff, correct? And that's how she's thinking. And I says, do you know what I would do first? I told her. I said, I would just go out and have a conversation with somebody. And she was like deer in the headlights. Okay. And I could tell it. It's like nobody has ever said this to her. It's like, oh, you've gotta create your coaching package. You've got to get your website up. You've got to create this 9-step funnel. You've got to create your ebook and all of this stuff before you can ever get off the ground. Anybody heard that before? Right? Anybody tried that? How'd that work for you? Right? They're gonna get back to David because David and I just talked yesterday. We went around and around. I said, David, okay, come on, right? Forget everything else.
Yeah, I've tried a lot of different things, and it was interesting. Don let me go, and then he brought me back. He said, David said, now you're doing all this. Let me show you how what I'm telling you would work. And so he brought me back, even though I had gone back to the dark side again. And he works with people like me, so he's used to it. So he was gentle with it. He didn't slap me around or anything.
Well, I think I just kind of slapped you upside your head. I gave you a virtual slap because, and I said, I told her, David, I said, have a conversation. Step 1. You ready? Can anybody here have a conversation? Forget about what you're selling. Totally, Terry. I mean, just bury it. It's difficult for
So
me,
true.
right?
So true.
Have a conversation. Okay, so step 1. Here it is. Step it up phrase. Step 1, have a conversation. Step 2, work on having better conversations. How hard is that? Come on. And I mess it up. I had a conversation with a gentleman last week, right? And I blew it because I did 99% of the talking. He was my therapy, but I guess I needed it, right? It was like, okay, it was like, it's like typically I put it out there and I zip it. I mean, but I needed it, right? But I blew a potential really good connection. I'll get it back, okay? But now I've got to backtrack a bit and be very patient and develop that relationship again a different way. Make sense? So having a better conversation typically is you doing less of the talking. Sound comfortable?
It reminds me of a joke, Donald, where a guy asked a CPA. I think I told you this joke. What's 1 + 1? And the guy said 2, and they brought in another CPA, and what's 1 + 1? He said within a relevant range, 0.97 to 3.6. I mean, he goes, you got good potential. And he brought in a guy from Arthur Anderson. He said, what do you want? And he said, what's 1 + 1? He says, what do you need it to be? That's how you start a conversation. Is what do you need it to be?
Yeah.
You don't start with the answer. You start with the conversation.
Yeah.
I know I told you that joke, but I thought back about it last night after we talked.
It's exactly it. And so you have to put aside your biases, your prejudices, your opinions, all of that kind of stuff. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's not easy.
No, you said it was easy earlier, and I was going to say it's not.
No, I should say it's simple. Okay, Richard,
It's simple.
thank you. It's very simple, but it is the hardest thing to do because we all have soapboxes. Come on, I've got my soapboxes. You guys haven't heard me on my soapbox, but I get on my soapbox, watch out, right? You got to put that all aside. Okay. Now, conversation, step 1. Step 2, work on having better conversations. Step 3, have better conversations with better people. You want to succeed in life? That's it.
That's the killer. Better people.
Yeah, better people. Now, what makes a better person? Okay. You're looking for buyers. Too many of us are going out And we're talking to people who are not buyers. You want to sell something? Talk to people who buy things. And it's not just what you're selling. What else do they buy? So look for evidence of people that are buying things. Now, getting back to encouraging their dreams, before you ever pitch what you've got, find out what else they're buying. And find out why they really bought that. Wow, that's a beautiful watch. Was that a Rolex? Why did you get a Rolex? And understand why they bought something. And you're going to get so fast to all the leverage spots that you need to encourage their dreams that you can't even imagine. Does it make sense? You're not selling watches, are you? Find out what they're buying and find out why they bought it, why they really bought it.
You know how much people love that, Donald.
How much?
A lot. I just in line with what you and I have been talking. Anyway, I've been out meeting there's some interesting stuff going on Post Falls. I met a lot of people in the last week.
There's interesting stuff in Post Falls, Idaho.
Amazing. There's some anyway, I walked up to one, he was photographing the event that I went to.
Uh-huh.
And I went and asked him about his camera, told him about my camera. Oh my God, he hounded me the rest of the he just couldn't wait to keep talking about his camera gear and his photography and his stuff and what he's doing. He was excited to talk about his stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Instant connection, because I had some cameras and he had some cameras, and there you go.
Yeah. Pay attention. Does that make sense to anybody? Has anybody tried that? Yeah. So I was telling David, I get back to our conversation because that's the most recent one, but I've talked to a few of you this week, so I can't remember. But when I was younger, I was doing enterprise sales. Okay. And I was going to these big events and I had to nail clients and big time clients, right? So there would always be these mixers at the end of the day or something. I knew who I needed to talk to. Okay, pay attention. This is the younger Donald. Okay, when I was out there scrapping for, I knew in that room who I needed to talk to. And I paid attention to which drink they got at the bar. And I don't care if I liked the drink or not. I got the exact same drink. And I didn't necessarily even drink it. I got the exact, and I just kind of casually walked over to them holding the drink.
It's just
Paying
making
atten-
a lot of sense, Donald.
Oh, good.
I was just reflecting back when I was a social worker and I was working in the parent education arena, and I was serving high-risk court-ordered parenting folks.
Mhm.
And of course, we had to do a lot of joining.
Mhm.
And my parenting instructor, the one who taught me, she's told me stories of how she would join with her clients by going out and smoking a cigarette with them, even though she didn't smoke.
Yep.
What did you do? I'm not sure I would do that, but I get the joining thing. So joining with the person, right?
It's huge. So so that's one way to do it. And then the other way to do it, Terry, because sometimes we want to kind of move it up. Now I've become a connoisseur of very good scotch, as an example. Okay. And so the last big high level event I was at down in Houston, I get the best scotch they had at the bar, which wasn't that good. It was okay, but it's like typically it's like right, whatever. But it wasn't Dewar's. I mean, it was actually it was okay. Okay. And I drink my scotch neat that's no ice cube, right? You just straight, right? That's the proper way. I mean, whatever. I mean, if you're a real scotch drinker, you don't put ice cube in your scotch. And
Preach
so
it, brother.
you're right. So, I get the best scotch I can get that they have. Okay. And I walk out into the middle of the room holding the drink, and I know how to drink scotch, you know, right? I'm a snob when it comes to that. And I just hold my glass of scotch and I let them come to me. But see, I did kind of the reverse thing is in that room, because I'm not where I was 10 years ago, right? They came to me. But does that make sense? In other words, we connected there, and the people that came over that recognized, number one, that I had gotten the best, most expensive pour and was doing it correctly, right? I wanted to attract to me those people who that default was that. Does that make sense? So we we start from there. And the person that came over to me walked me to the side of the hall, and we sat down on a very comfortable couch together, right? And that relationship has been very, very valuable. That's all I can say, right? And I just did a big webinar presentation, and he was one of the people in attendance. And who do you think was blowing up the chat in my favor? Because of that. Because of that relationship, first and foremost. And so many times as a service provider, whether you're a plumber or a coach or a CPA, we live and die by word of mouth advertising, correct? It's word of mouth, right? I mean, Eric, we had that conversation the other day. I mean, it's like it's connection. So the problem is that we're not expanding our connections, or we're not creating those deeper connections faster. That makes sense. And so that's where the gold's at. That's where the gold's at.
Well, you're talking about developing affinity with somebody, just
Mhm. Mhm.
but the subject today is encourage their dreams.
Correct.
How do you, there's a bridge between affinity and encourage their dreams. It's got to be some
Mhm.
bridge there.
Because so many times I would say in marketing, people, they're painting the picture of the dream, but they have the wrong dream. Because they don't have the right connection, the right affinity, it's the wrong dream. Richard, I'll give you a concrete example. Grant Cardone, right? When you think Grant Cardone, I don't know if anybody knows. Do you know?
Yeah, I
Okay.
don't like the guy one
Okay.
bit, but I know him.
Yeah, but you don't like the guy one bit, but you see what does he portray out there? I mean, it means like, it's Miami, it's flying in a jet.
Super consumption, man. Super consumption.
Right, right. And so he's painting that dream,
Mm-hmm.
right, to an audience that he has affinity with.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you see we're taught, number one, we've got the wrong audience. I'm gonna tell you 60% of your success is talking to the right people. You're talking to the wrong people. Does that make sense? It's like, this is where I'm trying to get at, Richard. It's just like, it's not one size fits all. You've got to find the right people. I have to understand their default. It's got to be pretty parallel to your own, quite honestly. It is where you're going to find it. I've got 6 kids. Okay. I'm going to tell you, most of my clients have kids. It's rare that I work with somebody that doesn't have kids, or understands family, or isn't trying to move in that direction, or has affinity with that, or came from, or has a solid family around them. Maybe they don't have children, but they have close connection with their family. That makes sense? Then we paint the dream. We encourage the dream. It makes sense. Does that help you, Richard? It's subtle, isn't it?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It is subtle. Well, and we've had this conversation in a different context before, which is,
Mhm.
the popular thing is marketing is go to the pain.
Mhm.
And I guess that's sure, I understand that, but it's still successful going to the other side and going to the dream or going to the aspiration. It's
Mhm.
just not quite as
If you have the right one, okay?
It's
And
almost
the
a moral
and
decision. Which side do you want to play to?
Yep. And it's timing, and it's paying attention to everything else. Remember, was it 1967 on a hilltop in Italy What happened, Eric? A group of people got on a hilltop in Italy and sang a jingle.
The Pepsi thing, or it's either that or the world is whatever.
It's not the Pepsi thing, it's the other one.
The world is
Coke,
It's Coke, Richard, it's Coke.
it's the real
Oh, it's not. I
thing.
thought Pepsi was the anti-Coke. It is.
Yeah, right. And what was that
To
about?
teach the world a song.
Yep. That was about connecting the dream to a very specific demographic at a very specific time. Make sense? It was timing, right? Was it about Coca-Cola? They understood their market. They weren't reaching for, see, okay, now here's really, really key. They were not reaching for a market they didn't already have. They were solidifying a market that they were already in. This is really, really important. They weren't reaching for a new market. Did you realize that? They were solidifying a market they were already in. They were trying to generate another 3%.
You told me many times, don't try to rescue a company, do a stuff. You've said many times, find a company that's already moving. That's kind of counterproductive because you would think you need to help somebody who's slowed down or stuck. But you have said, find people who are already doing fine and moving forward. You think they don't need help, but what you've said is they've demonstrated they got there by being open to more help in the first place, I guess.
Buyers are buyers.
Yeah.
Buyers are buyers. And so it's a much easier process to go after people that are already buying. Restaurants should not market to people that cook at home. Restaurants market to people that go out to eat. Buyers are buyers. Coaches should be pitching to people who reach out for guidance, who reach out for education, who pay for education, who pay for guidance, who have a history of that. If it, I mean, when you're talking with somebody, does everybody need help? Oh my, 100% of the people need coaching on this earth, but 100% of the people are not your target. 100% of the people that need what you have are not your target. That's the wrong target. People who are overweight are not a good target for people that are selling weight loss.
That's rather shocking.
Yeah. The research shows it over and over again. People that are overweight are not a good target for people selling weight loss.
That's the very definition of counterintuitive.
Encourage their dreams, right? This helping you guys out? This is, it's different than you thought it was, isn't it?
Is there a refinement? So if it's not the overweight, what is the refinement to that as far as the target audience?
For if I was selling weight loss,
yeah,
I would sell weight loss to people who exhibit a consistent effort to lose weight. You're gonna sell weight loss much quicker to people who are on the journey or have already initiated a lot of processes towards losing weight that they already identify as losing weight. That is like the center cut of the steak right there for weight loss. It's people that have probably already tried numerous things. Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers, that's your target audience. It's people that are already getting help.
Something I know, someone who I know, is a very, very active athlete. And so they were used to having really high carb load throughout their day. And then they had a foot issue like that took months to heal. It was like plantar fasciitis or something. And so that person all of a sudden was eating the same as when they were burning, 1,200 calories a day. And then all of a sudden they're gaining weight. So like that's a pretty motivated person to get back to their standards.
Back to their, see, so Kevin, you see right there, see to what they identified with, right? To their circle. They didn't identify with being overweight, right? It just, it is what it is. It's right there. It's like, I've worked with a lot of CPAs over the last few years. And the best person for a CPA to target is not somebody who doesn't have a CPA. The best person for a CPA to target is somebody who already has a CPA. Think about that for a moment. Over and over again. A majority of the people that have a CPA have some level of dissatisfaction with their current CPA. But they're used to having a CPA. As opposed to somebody who's never had a CPA, that's a harder sell. You can do it, but it's a harder sell, right?
Great example.
For me, it's a little scarier to approach that person. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking they don't want to talk to me. They got it. They got it together.
That's the ideal thing.
It's a little harder. It's a little harder to wrap my emotional mind around. It's real easy to be out there looking for someone who needs the help. I want to be I want to be a savior. That's easier to imagine than imagine myself aligning with somebody who's already doing it. I mean, the back of my mind, it's like they don't need me. They're doing fine.
Yeah.
So it's a lot harder to wrap my mind around what you're saying. You've been saying it 12 times now today already.
Yeah.
I'm still like,
I'll give you some more examples. Some years ago, I was actually working with a multi-level company. They were a client. I wasn't one of their distributors. I mean, they were actually a client. So a multi-level company, right? And I was working with chat. Okay. Yeah. Well, actually, I guess they were a client of mine through chat, and as an example. Okay. So full disclosure. But we also had a number of top multi-level marketing distributors as clients. Okay. So for that multi-level marketing company that was trying to get off the ground and really succeed, their target market was successful multi-level people already doing it. And the top multi-level marketing distributors, it's not recruiting just a green homeowner off the couch. The ones that really succeeded were ones that recruited people that were already successful in multi-level marketing. Let me say that again. The successful people are the ones that put their effort on recruiting others who were already successful in multi-level marketing. That's not what you're told, is it? Right? That's never right. That makes sense.
man.
Donald, there's another psychological piece which maybe gets into the weeds, yet in the world of addiction and recovery, somebody can buy the most expensive program that's out there, and there are many of them. But until the person who has the addiction decides and commits to recovering, it doesn't matter how expensive the program is or what it is or who puts you in the program. Until one makes that decision for themselves, nothing is going to stick.
Yeah. So kind of pulling us all together. Okay, how do we get there? Right? We know we need to encourage their dreams. But it's not painting maybe a picture of optimum health, right? That you can help them achieve or increase profitability in their business or whatever. You got to look beyond that. I got to challenge you to look beyond that. And then I'm going to challenge each of you. You should be doubling down on just going out into the world and having conversations. Stop worrying about selling what you have. Stop it. Chet trained us to go into a call with no emotion or what I would call commission breath, right? About whatever we were going to pitch. In other words, we had to come into a call totally devoid, not that we weren't going to pitch, not that we weren't going to be skilled at the pitch. I want you to make sure you understand that really, really clear. But we came into every conversation totally free of all that encumbrance, emotionally and mentally. You want to detach from the outcome. Carly can read my brain. See, she's been around me so long. So you got to detach yourself from the outcome. Maricel, I know how bad you want clients, right? But go out into the world and just talk with people, right? And take that pressure off, because you see, Maricel, now you're going to get into a relationship and you can find out what their default is, right? And then you can help encourage their dream first and foremost. And they may become a client or not. It doesn't make any difference, but they're more likely to lead you to your client now as well. Because you know what the world is starved for? Conversation. The easiest thing to sell is a good conversation. Oh my gosh. Conversation is the easiest thing to sell, and good conversation is gold. And better people are even more desirous of that. Better people, it's counterintuitive. The higher up you go, the harder it is for them to have good conversations. So when you seek out better people and optimize a good conversation, you're going to get much closer to encouraging their dreams, their real dreams. Their dream might be just having good conversations. Isn't that shocking? Their dream might just be having good conversations. We're overcomplicating it, aren't we? Right? Richard, I mean, as you've been reaching out, right? It's like some people, once you start talking, it's like you've done the biggest favor for them just to have a conversation, right?
Well, I said lots going on in Post Falls. It's really Coeur d'Alene, which is a bit.
Yeah.
There is a place called the Innovation Collective or something like that in Coeur d'Alene. They've taken their thing and spread it to like 60 cities. Their whole thing is just to have conversations about innovation. They do consulting to collect money. They charge you to join their little group. The whole thing is about having conversations about that subject. And I was just at one of their meetings yesterday, and I guess I could wax poetic about what I saw. But one of the things I observed that the guys that you want to have conversations with, you could tell when they engaged with somebody who knew how to do that. You know, everybody, you got 5 guys approaching him, and they'd lock eyes with one guy who knew how to carry on a conversation. In every case, that I eavesdropped some of it, but anyway, somebody knew how to connect with the conversation. Everybody else kind of stood around the edge, gawking at what was happening. But and no surprise, I'll say something that you're not going to be surprised by. Take the next step. There are fabulous books on how to have good conversations. Patrick King, Peter Hollins, these guys write book after book on how to have a conversation, how to connect with people. Yeah, take it to the next level. Go look up some of that stuff and practice their things and incorporate them, because you got to practice them. If you just read it, you're getting nowhere. You got to take 1 or 2 things out of this book and go practice it with people you're talking to. And you said it's gold. It's so much fun. It flows. It's so it just feels so good to get in a good conversation with somebody and feel it flow and go.
And you know,
has anyone read this one? Captivate by Vanessa Van Edwards. Very, very good. The Science of Succeeding with People. It's a fascinating book. Highly recommended.
Van Edwards. Captivate.
Yeah,
by Vanessa
Vanessa Van Edwards.
And then Tom, you held up a book. What was yours? How to Talk to Anyone, 27 Ways to Charm, Banter, Attract.
And is that Patrick King?
Patrick can.
Yes, it is.
And the fastest path to good conversations is bad conversations. The fastest path to success is failure. The fastest path to success is failure. Example and point, I'm in the adult choir for our we started this adult choir song. I'm in the choir, right? And you know that what my wife's the director. It's really tough having your wife be the director, you know, and full disclosure, because I'm also choir director, right? So I mean, it's like I'm not like on this side, I'm a professional musician and I'm in the group, right? But and you know who makes the most mistakes? Me. But you know who learns the fastest? Me. Okay. Like I miss the repeats. I have the wrong words, you know, we got our big performance on Saturday. And it's like, okay, we gotta have, then it's gotta, everything's memorized, right? And I don't have it memorized. And so I made some big mistakes in the dress rehearsal last night. But you see, my mistakes will get me to perfection faster, as opposed to some of us we're like, I don't know how to have a conversation, so you won't have any conversations. Don't do it. Don't wait to read the book. Do not wait to read the book. Go out and have conversations. Period. That's it. I hope you guys have today. Good stuff. Good stuff.